I never imagined that a single moment of desperation could unravel everything I believed about morality and love. My daughter, Lyra, had always been the light in my life. Her laughter cutting through the darkness of our small, crumbling apartment. But one night, a fire, unnatural and merciless, claimed her presence from the living world. I rushed to the scene, hoping to pull her from the flames, only to find her body cold, her soul already drifting toward the abyss. The morticians shook their heads at me, muttering about divine judgment, but I knew nothing divine had caused this. My grief was raw, and it clawed at my mind. That night, as I wandered the streets in disbelief, I felt a strange pull, a cold, serpentine whisper that spoke of power, of bargains made in shadows, of undoing death itself. I was a rational man, skeptical of myths and old wives' tales, yet the voice promised my daughter back. The Lamias, it said, dwell between worlds, devour the essence of humanity, and return what is lost, but at a cost. My soul screamed in protest even as my heart whispered her name. The alleyway was silent, the moon casting an eerie glow on the damp cobblestones as I followed the whispers. It was there I first saw her, the Lamia queen, coiled atop a mound of silver smoke, her eyes glittering with knowledge older than humanity itself. Her presence was mesmerizing, both horrifying and irresistible. Her voice curled around my mind, promising me reunion with my daughter if I dared sacrifice my own humanity. I hesitated, my rational mind screaming that no bargain with monsters ended well. But her gaze pierced through me, showing me Lyra's wide, terrified eyes, her small hand reaching from the flames. It was unbearable. The queen slithered closer, her scales whispering against one another like silk, and extended a clawed hand. "Do you love her enough to become something else?" she asked, and in that moment, I felt the gravity of the choice pressing into my chest. Love, primal and unreasoning, surged through me. I nodded, unable to speak, unable to think beyond the image of her life fading forever. The queen's smile widened, sharp as knives, as she prepared to weave the ancient curse. The transformation was excruciating. My bones stretched and snapped, reshaping into forms both human and serpent, my skin splitting and reforming into scales that glimmered faintly in the dim light. My senses exploded. I could hear the whispered prayers of the dead, smell the fear of every living creature nearby, taste the air in ways that humans were never meant to. My heart felt both immense and hollow, pumping with a power I had never known, yet grieving the humanity I had surrendered. The Lamia queen watched with approval as my body contorted, my mind stretching to accommodate instincts that were no longer entirely my own. When it was over, I looked down at my hands, clawed, elongated, and covered in faintly iridescent scales, and a shiver ran down my spine. The world appeared sharper, more dangerous, and yet I understood it in a way I had never before. But my first thought, before awe or fear, was of Lyra. The queen gestured toward a swirling portal of fire and shadow, promising that my daughter awaited. And there she was, suspended above an endless sea of writhing flames, her small body unharmed but trembling, her eyes wide with disbelief and recognition. Lyra fell into my arms the moment I reached her, sobbing uncontrollably. Her tiny hands clung to my scaled shoulders, and I felt a pang of guilt and sorrow. My reflection was no longer human, yet her trust remained unwavering. "Daddy, what happened?" she whispered, her voice trembling, and I had no truthful answer that could ease her confusion. The Lamia queen circled us, her serpentine tail coiling lazily around the edges of the portal, her eyes glinting with expectation. "You now serve the balance," she intoned. "The cost of life is seldom small, and your debt is not yet paid." I understood then that the price was far greater than I had imagined. I could protect Lyra, yes, but I was no longer the man she had known. I was a guardian of darkness, bound to a kingdom that existed beyond mortal comprehension, a creature both revered and feared. Still, as I held her close, feeling her warmth against my alien form, I realized something profound. Humanity is not merely flesh and bone. It is the love that drives choices, the courage to face the abyss for someone else. Even as a Lamia, that part of me endured, tethered to my daughter's heartbeat. Our escape from the portal was not simple. The denizens of hell, shadows, fire wraiths, and twisted souls, reached out to claim Lyra, but my new abilities allowed me to strike with speed and precision impossible for a human. I hissed, leapt, and struck, my claws tearing through the fabric of hellish creatures like wind through silk. Lyra screamed and clung to me, her innocence shielding her from the worst of the horrors around us. Each strike cost me a piece of my sanity. Each enemy I crushed reminded me that I had entered a world where the rules of morality no longer applied. The Lamia queen's laughter echoed behind us as if mocking my struggle, reminding me that I was bound to her, to the darkness I had embraced. But even in this chaos, I felt the fierce joy of life returned. The way her small fingers gripped mine as we navigated the infernal maze. By the time we reached the exit, my body was slick with ichor and fire, and my mind was frayed. Yet, Lyra's presence anchored me. The horrors behind us reminded me that salvation is rarely free, and love often demands sacrifices incomprehensible to those who have never faced the abyss. Back in the mortal realm, the world seemed impossibly bright, a stark contrast to the horrors we had escaped. Lyra's laughter returned slowly, tentative but genuine, a fragile thread weaving through the shadows of my new existence. People stared at me, at the faint shimmer of scales along my arms, the serpentine flicker in my eyes, but I no longer cared. The Lamia essence within me granted me longevity, speed, and senses far beyond human limits, yet the weight of my choice was constant. Every meal, every breath, reminded me of what I had surrendered. I could not enter temples, could not pray to God, who might condemn me. I was a liminal creature, between worlds, between morality, between forms. Yet in Lyra's eyes, I saw acceptance. Children, I realized, often see beyond appearance, beyond monstrous forms, straight to the heart that beats for them. And so, I vowed that while my flesh was no longer human, my love, protection, and devotion would remain entirely so. Even if the Lamias demanded obedience, even if the cost grew heavier with time, Lyra's life, and her happiness, was worth more than any remnants of my former humanity. The Lamia father standing beside Lyra in a sunlit, mortal city, his iridescent green-blue scales faintly visible, golden eyes warm and focused on her, coiled tail protective, Lyra looking up at him with innocent trust, atmosphere serene yet layered with the weight of his supernatural transformation and unyielding devotion, light highlighting the enduring bond between father and daughter. Moonlight, hearing Lyra's soft breathing and feeling her warmth beside me. She remained untouched by the darkness I carried, a beacon in a world that had shifted forever. Yet the cost of my bargain was a constant reminder. The Lamias do not forgive weakness, and my devotion alone would not undo the curse. I had traded eternity in the human realm for fleeting moments with her, and even those moments were tinged with peril. The duality of my existence, predator and protector, monster and parent, became a balancing act that demanded every ounce of cunning, patience, and strength I possessed. In the years that followed, Lyra grew into a girl of remarkable courage and insight, unaware of the full extent of the darkness surrounding her father. I guided her silently, teaching her to navigate a world I could no longer fully inhabit, protecting her from threats both mundane and supernatural. Yet I felt the pull of the Lamias with every heartbeat, every instinct urging me to embrace my predatory nature fully. I resisted for her sake, reminding myself that my humanity, though lost, was still defined by my choices, by my capacity to love rather than devour. Occasionally, I glimpsed other humans and felt an aching nostalgia, a longing for a life I could never reclaim. I walked among them like a shadow, a silent guardian who had paid the ultimate price for love. And in those moments, when the weight of my monstrous form pressed hardest, I found solace in the tiny hand in mine, in the trust that shone in Lyra's eyes, in the knowledge that I had saved her from a hell far worse than any human death could bring. Time passed differently for me, stretched by the Lamia's essence coursing through my veins. Decades became whispers. Seasons changed while my daughter aged at the human pace, unaware that her father's shadowed form had witnessed centuries of darkness. I taught her compassion, courage, and resilience, shielding her from the knowledge of my true nature. Occasionally, she would gaze at me with curiosity, questioning why I never aged, why my eyes reflected moonlight in a way that seemed unnatural. I answered vaguely, crafting tales of distant lands and strange magic, careful not to reveal the bargain. that had tethered me to darkness. Yet the Lamia Queen's presence never waned. She sometimes appeared at the edges of my vision, reminding me that while Lyra was safe, I remained bound. Each encounter reinforced the lesson I had learned painfully. The price of salvation is eternal vigilance. I had saved my daughter from hell, yes, but in doing so, I had sentenced myself to a different kind of torment. One where love and sacrifice intertwined endlessly, a constant reminder of the cost of choosing her life over my own. Now, standing at the edge of a forest as Lyra prepares to leave home for her own journey, I feel the full weight of my existence. I watch her small figure vanish into the dawn, a human life she is free to live, unaware of the father who lingers in shadows, serpent form hidden beneath layers of clothing and careful distance. My heart swells with pride and sorrow. The Lamias have claimed my humanity, yes, but they cannot touch the love that fuels every heartbeat. I am forever changed, neither fully human nor entirely monster.